Well, thank you for tuning in to another exciting edition of Media Monitor and welcoming us into your homes. But first, let's join the rest of the world in celebrating International Women's Day. Come on, let us salute women for their role in society as well as their amazing ability to make things happen. Remember to be part of our discussions today. Do call us on the following numbers. It's +2711 714 6843, 714 6847 or 714 6857, or alternatively interact with us on Twitter at SA Media Monitor. A very good morning to you. In our headline news this morning, Boko Haram pledges allegiance to Islamic State. In sports news, the Proteas failed to chase down an opposition total for the second time in the Cricket World Cup to resurrect all doubts about their ability under pressure. Mourners have already gathered in Mount Freer village in the Eastern Cape to lay to rest popular traditional radio DJ Saba Mbikane. And here are the leading online and radio news.
Top stories at 8. Afro Forum questioning land claims and Cape Town champion retains title. Good morning, I'm Zodwa Mugwena.
Well, a very good morning to you. Well, before we start reviewing our newspaper headlines today, let's welcome our guest this morning. We do have Mr. Dominic Mahlangu and, of course, Mr. Mondli with us here in studio. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us in studio today.
Good day. Morning.
Gentlemen, let's have a look at those headline news today. The Sunday Independent, there it is. Apartheid spooks sold secrets. The weekend August, 3 die in a bus tragedy. The weekend August, 3 die in a bus tragedy. And the City Press, there, McBride in the firing line. The Sunday Tribune, yes, sports stars and businesses agree we can do it. And the Sunday Times, their divorce by SMS, how Biff lied to his wife. We do have from Zimbabwe the Sunday Mail there with major changes to the constitution coming. All right, well, gentlemen, let's start by discussing this. We'll start with the Sunday Times there, of course, and it says divorce by SMS. Well, rumors or allegations have come out that former cricket captain Mr. Graham Smith is alleged to have sent an SMS mistakenly to his wife, which was actually meant for his lawyers in a secret divorce that he was planning against her. Gentlemen, I just want to understand, though, really, why this story a front page, though? Dominique, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you know the caliber of the Sunday Times, I think it's one of the stories that they decided just to put up front. But it's a very, what we call in the newsrooms, a juicy kind of a story. It's got all the details. You've got a sports star, you've got a former captain of the Proteas, and then you've got this messy divorce that is happening. And the allegations that he simply SMS'd the whole process to his lawyers. I mean, it adds to the whole, a vibe into this. It's a very interesting story. It's got all the details.
Yeah. Mondli, what do you think? And you know what fascinates me is the fact that right next to it is a bus tragedy accident that actually took place yesterday in the Cape yesterday, and it doesn't have as much coverage as the story of the divorce. What do you think, Mondli?
Well, I would assume that some of the discussion that would have gone into it would have been the fact that, there's been a deluge of really hard, bad news. I mean, like, you've had the pay back the money, chaos in Parliament, you've had the spy cables, you've had a lot of controversies going on. There's Boko Haram, there's ISIS beheadings and so on. And I think that some of the discussion that would have gone on in the meetings at the Sunday Times would probably have been about the fact that let's lighten up. Let's give people something just juicy to talk about. And you know what? He's a former Proteas captain. It's a divorce case. There aren't many occasions where you can actually talk about divorce. And so let's just make people laugh. Let's give something, let's titillate the public.
For a change.
I think that's what in the discussion.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on then. Look at more serious news now. The Sunday Independent there is leading with apartheid spook sold secrets. Now, this headline, a former apartheid intelligence agent has been fingered as the person that actually, as the source that leaked the damning intelligence cable that were leaked to Al Jazeera. Now, at a time where racism is rearing its head like this, what do you make of this headline, Dominic?
No, I think South Africa should just realize, just like the United States of America is still dealing with this whole thing of its secrets being made public. We're still going to see more out of this. And I think the headlines today suggest that the story is far from over. We're still going to see more stories coming out, the individuals involved. And it's just a messy affair. It's just a messy affair, according to my brief here.
Mondli, you leading with this story today. Tell us more about it.
Well, I think Dominic's right. The issue there, I think there's going to be a lot more coming out, because I think the question in everybody's mind was who leaked the story and why. And I think that it's something that we still have to get to the bottom of, because in the United States, when we had the WikiLeaks saga, you had the Snowden tapes, it was about, he was exposing abuses by the CIA and the American intelligence system. In this particular case, it was very innocuous stuff. I mean, and it's not as if this person was saying the South African government is doing this wrong and the South African government is doing this wrong and digging into people's private records and so on. It was just soma, as they would say in South Africa. And so I think, it was interesting, because anything to do with espionage, with the spy world, everybody is very interested. And that's why the story was so big and it ran throughout the world and so on. But I think that we have to know where did it come from. And the source is a very interesting story, obviously.
All right. And of course, there to City Press, Mondli, we're talking about Sunday Independent. Now, it says there, McBride in the firing line. Now, apparently, Police Minister Nathi Nhleko has accused IPID head Mr. Robert McBride of deliberately changing findings of a report into the roles of Dramat and Sibiya on the illegal rendition of those Zimbabweans. Now, the ongoing developments on the story, Dominic, what do you make about this latest revelation?
My take on it, I'll try and flip it. I'll say that what kind of a reporter we were expecting? I mean, that's the question I will put to the Minister of Police. Do you want a report that confirms what you already have, behind your mind? Or you want a report that is going to give you a balanced view? So if there's going to be two reports, as is being suggested, where do these reports come from? Why do we have two reports? And if the minister says that the report was changed, why was it changed? I think those are the things that should be answered going forward. But for the minister to say that he will deal with Robert McBride in terms of the report, my next question will be, what kind of report are you expecting? Expecting a report that confirms your views or not?
Mondli.
I think the story speaks to the absolute chaos that is there in our law enforcement environment. In the NPA, you know that the National Director of Public Prosecutions is under scrutiny. There's a commission of inquiry that's going to be looking into him. He's at war with his deputy. And there's an uprising against Reapiega in the police. Within the Hawks, there's the Dramat is under suspension, and there's an acting commissioner there, and there's a big fight going on within there. And now the head of IPID is now also facing suspension, and he's at war with the minister. And this in a country with a very huge crime problem, and where the focus actually needs to be, and within crime intelligence as well. I mean, like Richard Mdluli is also so basically, the people who are supposed to be keeping us secure are not doing the job they're supposed to be doing. They're not keeping us secure. Instead, they are busy shooting at each other. And I think that we should actually be very, very concerned as a country. And then the government of our republic should be very concerned about the state. It's actually a major, major crisis. And I don't think that we should be taking it as lightly as we're taking it at the moment as a country.
Dominic, why should we be concerned?
I mean, any country that has got lax security structures, I mean, you'll end up having these problems of documents getting leaked to foreign intelligence and all of that. But then it clearly shows that in this country, politics have actually polluted every structure of government. Why would ministers, including the president himself, not deal with this thing effectively? You cannot have this chaos. I mean, they are taking headlines, wrong headlines in terms of the media. Instead of us dealing, as South Africans, dealing with crime-related issues and how do we solve crime. Now we're dealing with personalities, people who want each other out of offices. So it's a very, very, as Mr. Makanya is pointing out, it's a very, very major crisis for this country, that you've got all the security structures, I mean, from police up until the intelligence, that are not, being guided properly.
But what is happening with all this information that keeps coming out? What is being done about it, Mondli?
Well, I think the focus, unfortunately, the focus in this country is always on politics. And it's about the political game, it's about political power, instead of actually doing what you are supposed to be doing. And it's certain to say that very little, that, the Minister of Police is micromanaging what's happening in the law enforcement area, instead of actually giving the big picture and actually giving the direction about the fight against crime. We have a very bad brand in South Africa. I mean, this is a country that used to have a magnificent brand. I mean, like, we were the country that the continent was looking towards, the whole world was looking towards us, as being an example of how to do things. And now, actually, our brand is about this chaotic place. And crime is one of the things that when you go overseas, when people speak about us in this country, they speak about the crime-ridden South Africa. And we should actually be focusing on it as a priority area, rather than these personality issues and political battles that Dominic is talking about.
Let's look at the weekend, August. There very quickly, gentlemen, just on the downside there. 3 die in a bus tragedy. Now, this story, it's very amazing that it didn't get front page news across all newspapers. This was a rather hectic accident yesterday. What do you make of the headline today, Dominique?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very tragic incident. But going to the media, as Mondli explained earlier on, I mean, week in, week out, every day, I think our focus has been on the bad side of life in South Africa. So people, I think, I mean, even across newsrooms, there's also this thing, another accident, another, tragedy. So we're getting numb in terms of following such kind of stories. But I'm glad that the Weekend August made it a focus. It's a provincial story. And I think they had a duty to make sure that it's in their front page.
Thank you for that. Well, we're going to take a very quick ad break. And after that, stay tuned for some interesting stories that, for whatever reason, didn't make front page news. You can still be part of our discussions today by calling us on +2 711 714 6843, 714 6847, and 714 6857, or interact with us on Twitter at SA Media Monitor. We'll be back shortly after this. Stay with us.
You can't have a gut feeling about other people's gut feeling.
Ngaba has continued the tradition of passing stories onto the next generation, using a platform that offers stories to a far more greater audience.
Zombie no go unless you tell them to go.
This is what the audiences all over the world knew Fela Kuti for.
Join Musa Mkhalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
Welcome back. Well, there are also other interesting stories that didn't make the front pages. Let's have a look at them. And of course, the Sunday Times, their page 4 says state security pledges probe into CIA claims won't be a witch hunt. Now, the Department of State Security says that they won't necessarily spy on the 4 M's, Mazibuko, Malema, Madonsela and Matunja. After a blog fingered them in being the US CIA spies, they will investigate, though, who made these claims. Now, panel, this spy drama, will we ever get to see the end of it, knowing that we're not really going to get to the bottom of it because we'll never get those intelligence documents? Dominique?
No, I think, it's just a waste of time. We did in our own newsroom try to follow the so-called blog. The individuals involved in that blog, are so dodgy themselves. So, I was taken by surprise if the minister is going to say, anyway, we're going to investigate. So we're going to waste South Africa's resources to follow someone who is sitting in a dark corner somewhere writing a blog. But I'm not saying that they should not follow it. If there is, issues at hand that they require that they must do the investigation, it's fine. But we should not be wasting time, on claims that come from blogs, come from Twitter and all of that. We've got major issues to deal with.
Well, the minister says, Dominique, there that, well, you can't just put out that kind of information, and especially if it's wrong about a person, which is why they want to get to the bottom of the story.
No, but I think the minister should also go to his the MP, who's the head of military veterans within the ANC, Mr. Kebi Padzwe, who actually was the first to say that Thuli Madonsela is a CIA agent. And so I think he should be the first one to be called in and explain himself. Where did he get the information? Are there documents that he can provide to our security agencies? But for me, I think it's just a waste of time and also a deflection away from what happened in Parliament during the State of the Nation, where the minister should be focusing his resources on.
And we just saw that page, that story on the front page there at City Press, Mondli.
This story, it is the most ridiculous thing. As the Honorable Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi would say, it's poppycock and balderdash. You read that thing, and it looks like it was drawn up by somebody who had too much nyawope and just sat down on a computer and wrote it. Honestly, when you look at it, you wonder why the government can actually take it so seriously. One of the first lines in that thing is Thuli Madonsela a CIA agent? It says, we may never know, because the CIA keeps their agents secret, obviously. Yeah. And then it goes on to kind of like make some very ridiculous conjecture about why she could possibly be a CIA agent. Nobody would ever take it seriously. And the fact that an entire minister of state security actually says, let's probe these allegations. It's something that, as Dominic will tell you, this thing, people in government have been trying to peddle this thing to us, like do something with it, do something with it. And like all of us have looked at it and laughed. And I think that it was a way of getting the public to take it seriously for the minister to do this. And I think he has made himself a great fool of himself by doing this. And I think it's actually really tragic that that resources of state can actually be utilized to look into this. But what is a lot more serious is that we should never find ourselves as a country in a situation where the intelligence services and the security services are used to monitor whether public figures, whether it's opposition, whether it's people who hold public office, whether it's people kind of like us here in the media. And I think that this opens a very dangerous path towards making that a normal thing.
But Mondli, then why are these nonsensical information things then put in the public domain if they're not really worthy of the public's attention? Let's hear your view there, Dominic.
I will go back to what Mr. Makanya said. We've got serious issues. Let's be honest. We've got serious issues in this country. And for the minister to divert the needed resources to go in and investigate a blog written by someone who's not even sure of his facts, I mean, we go back to this mole dossier that was peddled a few years back, where, I mean, even the writing itself, you could tell that the person didn't even do a spell check. I mean, just to get his facts straight. And it's a type of a document where someone will read the newspaper on Monday, join the information with another story on Sunday and all of that, and then come up with this theory around what is happening. And for the minister to come out publicly and say that they are going to divert resources to investigate, but he wants to assure the public that they are not going to abuse the process, whilst they are investigating the claims around Malema, Thulima Donsel and others. I mean, he should be telling us other things, not this story.
Let's leave it there then, if it doesn't make sense to anybody. Let's move on to other stories now. The Sunday Independence Inside Stories, page 10, it says Lesotho woes are far from being over. Now, a grim look, this story is taking a grim look at the pending possibilities of what's going to happen after the coalition agreement becomes a government. Now, King Letsie III has called all members for an urgent meeting on Tuesday so that he can start installing the new parliament. Your views there, Mondli?
Well, what's wonderful about Lesotho is that, the outcome of this is that now the LCD and the DC have outmaneuvered the ABC and the BNP.
Are you rapping,
You have a multi-party coalition that's going to be taking power in Lesotho. And the other multi-party coalition is not happy about it. The former Prime Minister has already indicated that actually he's not going to be accepting this. I don't think that we have seen the end of the Lesotho story. I think there's going to be a lot more instability coming. Now we see that the former head of the army who was behind the coup might be coming back into power and being put into power by the new coalition now that's coming into power. So I think that there's going to be a lot more instability in Lesotho. And what puzzles me and boggles me about Lesotho is that there's so much conspiracy and fighting over a country that has very little resources, actually.
Thank you. Let's leave it there. Dominic, quickly.
No, for me, Lesotho will never get it right. I mean, you cannot have, I will use Gauteng for example. Can you imagine Gauteng having about 27-something political parties and trying to get into the legislature to run the province? So Lesotho's got too many political parties. And I can sympathize with them because through politics, that's when you get a bit of power and a bit of money. But, I mean, it's chaotic. It's chaotic. Either the country, I don't know how they can do it. Reduce the political parties or make it a point that there is a dominant political party in that country.
All right,
but
Dominic.
for now, it's just chaos.
All right, Dominic. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully after the inauguration, we'll know what's really going to happen. But we have to discuss this story now. It's page 2 of course, the City Press, and it says, is this SA's dodgiest chief executive now? Panel here, suspended Dube Trade Port CEO Saxon van Coller apparently faked her qualifications to climb up the corporate ladder and also to get jobs. Now, this is normally associated with the black majority in the workforce. Gentlemen, please, I want to hear your views. Let's start with you, Mondli.
Yes, although she's a very colorful character. She's held a string of jobs. She's faked her qualifications, claimed to have an MBA and a PhD and all sorts of things, and managed to dupe people. And yes, I mean, like what we've seen over in the recent past, you've had black people being in the front line, Ellen Shabalala, and so on, and Dr. Paulo Jordan, and so on, and Mhaupego most recently. Now it's very good, actually. I think to see that. It is not. Blacks do not have a monopoly on this. It's not our copyright. That everybody does it.
Dominic, very quickly before we go to the end break.
My friend of mine simply, tweeted and said it's about time. As Mondli was saying, I think it's part of human nature, and I think in this country, the sooner we realize that black people don't hold any exclusive rights to anything that is wrong. It's a human nature. Everyone, including whites, Chinese, everyone can find himself in this situation. So, but it's good that some of these things are being highlighted.
But do you think it's getting the same treatment there, gentlemen, to be fair? Monday.
Yes, I mean, like it's big news in a national newspaper. One of the biggest newspapers in the country, and I think that if you have seen the conversation online and in the public domain this past week, yes, it has. Obviously, she's not as famous as people like Ellen Chabalala, who was the chairperson of a major institution. So it is getting the prominence it deserves.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. And of course, coming up after the break, ANC wants SABC to show Jay-Z more love. Well, that's the controversial Mail and Guardian headline that we'll discuss when we return. Do stay tuned to SABC News for more Media Monitor shortly after this break. Stay with us.
There are places some are afraid to go. Discussions some are afraid to have.
Leave the house. We're not going to say anything further than this.
But some have the courage to open their eyes. To go to those places, have those discussions.
You're pulling at least 18 hours a day?
Because sometimes perceptions need to be altered.
It's been dubbed the trial of the century.
And when you get to the press conference,
They were hoping that would stem the tide.
Stories need to be told in a language everyone can understand.
Once you have religious power, you can abuse people.
but they have got benefits. Free marijuana.
I can only hope that you media, you hear these things.
Everything you might have been afraid to ask, but need to know. SABC Current Affairs.
Didier Drogba, a footballer from Ivory Coast, was named as the third most influential celebrity in Africa.
Where I saw him display, he's very nice player. He always make an impact.
Drogba donated his $5 million endorsement fee to the construction of a hospital in Abidjan.
Well, there are some lesser known football stars in the continent that you haven't met.
Really?
And are deserving of more attention.
I think we will do better.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. The weekly Mail and Guardian newspaper says the ANC wants the public broadcaster to tell good stories about government without being apologetic. The weekly alleged that the decision was fueled by the ANC's fear of losing the propaganda battle. Now, this follows the party's communication workshop aimed at enhancing government's communication strategies. The ruling party has accused the media of being overly negative and failing to tell the story of how the country has turned around since the end of apartheid. Well, to unpack this issue, let's welcome communication consultant Mr. Chris Vick, as well as Mail and Guardian deputy editor Mr. Moshweshwe Munare. Gentlemen, a very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Vick, let's start with you. So you were at the workshop. Did the ANC, in fact, make the proposal at the workshop that President Jacob Zuma should be given positive coverage on the SABC channels?
Well, no, but I'm even more curious about this concept of showing more love. I mean, I think maybe we should just push that question to Moshwesh. What does the Mail and Guardian mean? I mean, you've got the headline there, showing JZ more love. What does that mean? Who said that?
Monare, I was actually going to ask you exactly that question. What motivated this conclusion, and why didn't other media pick up on this agenda?
I thought I was going to be interviewed by you and not by Chris Vick. Look, our reporters spoke to people who attended there, and these were in the discussions. And if you look at the content of the story, we never claimed that this was a decision. We said these were discussions. And look, we are really aware that there are people out there, especially with factions in the ANC, that will try to leak selectively. They have been there before in 2007, where people want to push their own candidate. They came with all manner of names. You know, some of them call them third ways. Some of them call themselves, you know, anything but Zuma. We are aware of those kind of things, and we always caution our journalists to say, double check, verify the information independently, and make sure that you are not being used by sources. And we initiated, after we have realized that people like Chris Vick, you know, are complaining about our story, we initiated our own ombudsman, who's an external person, by the way, to look at the story. And if he is satisfied that the story did not meet our criteria and our processes in rigorous checking, we will accept, we will own up. It's not in our interest to get things wrong. And for people to attach motives just because we got one story wrong, if that's the case, I think is disingenuous. Because, you know, the Mail and Guardian, the only thing that we have as, you know, the only value that we have is our credibility. I don't see really why would we get things wrong, and, you know, I mean, newspapers get things wrong all the time. I don't think they are. May I just finish my point to say I don't think really they will be proud. The public will reject them if they're going to really gloat about getting things wrong.
But Mushwesh, are you saying that everybody who's read this and feels this way is missing the point totally?
I don't understand your question.
All right, in terms of how it came out, as you've just explained, that was your view as an organization. Are you saying that the people that disagree with that view and saying that the headline itself speaks to some other agendas, are you saying that everybody that thinks that way then got the headline wrong?
No, all I'm saying is that our editor was satisfied after we spoke to reporters, after we spoke to the political editor, our editor was satisfied to say, in terms of source checking, in terms of verification, we are fine. However, it's not her call, especially if there are people complaining about our story. And remember, we do adhere to an ethical code that says members of the public, including spin doctors like Chris Vick, should have some remedial processes where if they're not satisfied with the story, they must raise it.
Okay.
And our editor immediately said, Franz Kruger, look at the story. And if you're satisfied that our headline is misleading, like Chris is saying, then let's own up. And if still Chris Vick and his fellow spin doctors are not satisfied, they can still go to the press ombudsman.
Mushwesh, I really want to hear what Chris has to say. Chris, in your view, what was the workshop all about? And why this particular workshop? Are there underlying issues that we as society need to be alluded to?
Well, the workshop was a build-up to the ANC National General Council, which is in June. At that National General Council, the ANC will discuss a number of issues, economic issues, social development, and the media is one of them. So part of the build-up to the NGC was the policy workshop that we had on the weekend of the 22nd of February. So it's a very structured process. It's not a group of people sitting around brainstorming. The format on the Sunday, which I attended, was feedback from Saturday's discussion, which was about information and communication technology. That was followed by an overview by Zizi Kodwa, who's the ANC spokesperson, and then I did a presentation which essentially countered pretty much what the Mail and Guardian has reported. It said the media is an important platform for dialogue with the public, whether it's the SABC, the Mail and Guardian, etc. So what we must do is think about how the ANC can better improve its relationship with the media. Then we went into what are called commissions. So you break that group of 70 people up into smaller groups. People discuss. Those groups then report back. I chaired one session. I reported back on my session. The other chairs reported back on theirs. A report gets written up, and then that document will form the basis of what goes to the NGC. Now, as I said in my letter to the Mail and Guardian, I was there from 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock. I heard the inputs. I wasn't in every commission. I'm only human. I could be in one. But I heard the report backs from those 7 commissions. And I can tell you for a fact, as I said in my letter, I don't understand this thing about showing more love, but there was definitely no conversation that even vaguely came close to that. There was no talk about how the EFF should be covered. There was definitely no talk about setting up an ANC newspaper. There was no discussion about capturing the public broadcaster. It was a very, very mature conversation around how the ANC can make better use of the media environment. That's why I was completely shocked when I saw the paper. 2 other people called me and said, was there a different workshop, right? I said, no, it's the same thing. I then posted my letter on Facebook. I counted this morning, 15 people who were there who say, this is fiction. This is not true. Unless what Mushwesh is going to argue is somewhere in one of those commissions, during a conversation, somebody said, we need an ANC newspaper. People would have discussed it. It didn't make it into the final recommendation.
You're not a Sangoma, you will not know how...
Go ahead, wait, Munara, wait, please, Mushwesh. Let's let Chris finish. Chris, very quickly.
You're right. I don't know what happened in every commission, but I know what was reported back. And what was reported back
and
was
it's
not
all
this.
in here in this article.
And I think the difficulty is it's not what you expect, firstly. But secondly, all it does is it ratchets up the tension. I mean, the ANC put out a statement on Thursday, which I don't agree with. I mean, I really have problems with it. I think it's a little bit overboard, right? But I think it's because there's a level of anger. You have an internal party workshop, and you end up with this.
Now, Mushwesh, I want you to answer this. What do you say to the perception that liberal media is actually pursuing an agenda and somewhat discrediting the democratic system that we currently have in the country?
Okay, I don't know what liberal media is, but all what I can say is that the thing is that there are factions in the ANC. And when it suits these factions, they want the media to be manipulated. Chris, for example, wrote in Business Day in 2012 in what he calls Confessions of a Reputation Manager, and about how he and other reputation managers, it's so easy to manipulate journalists when it suits them. And he was right to say when the ethics and professionalism in media is very low, we've got a problem where media is manipulated. People like Zizi, for example, before 2007, they were happy with the media reporting about the president of the ANC and the president of the country, who happened to be one Thabo Mbeki, because at that time it suited their fiction. Some people call themselves Third Way, where they were pushing their candidate, and they were happy when we reported about the ANC and the president of the ANC. Now, those people are in power. They forget that the media, our role is to hold those in power accountable, irrespective of whether it's their fiction or not. Now they're in power, people like Zizi. They are surprised when we continue trying to hold people accountable, and separate that from us getting wrong. If we get it wrong, it's something else. We will apologize, and we will make sure, our editor, Angela Quintal, made sure that if we report about the ANC or any other party or any other individual, we need to be fair. And it's not in our interest to be unfair to the ANC. It's not in our interest to really be hostile to the ANC. The ANC was voted by more than 11 million people. It was elected in a democratic election. It's not in our interest to do that. But all what we do is to hold us. There is no way we're going to really give in to some fictional battles where someone who says, now I'm in power, do not report about the president, do not be hostile about the president. And even our editor, Angela Quintal, when she took over, she said, look, this tension between the ANC is not really healthy, because there are healthy tensions between which we should accept. Sure. Spoke to the ANC leaders to say, can we talk? And they refused. All I'm saying is that we are trying to hold people accountable, and people should not be motivated by their own fictional motives to now stand up and say the Mail and Guardian is very hostile. I think that is disingenuous, that is dishonest.
Chris, you mentioned something very interesting there about anger, which brings me to my next point, that isn't that this kind of reporting or perception when reporting, promoting further segregation amongst our society, where people are made to see a sort of superior view in terms of what they read? Chris?
I agree with you, but I'm disappointed that Mushwesh's fallback is to say there are factions and there are spin doctors who are doing things, right? The first 4 letters of the word faction is fact. That's what this issue is about. This article is not factual. I can prove it. I can give you the comments from 15, 16 people who were in that workshop who I had no contact with, who spontaneously said things like, I think the journalists must go claim back the money they paid to their so-called sources because they misinformed the newspaper. Someone else, I thought I was going crazy when I read that article because I didn't hear any of these issues. Moloto Motapo, who's the ANC's head of communications in Parliament. What a rebuttal. This sounds like a work of fiction. If the sources were actually interviewed, their opinions were definitely distorted.
Chris, hold it there. Maybe let's be fair. Mushwesh, please explain what you meant by this headline then. Maybe we should have started there.
All what we meant about the headline was that people that our journalists spoke to, they were saying that the SABC must not be apologetic and they must give more positive coverage to the president. That's what we meant about the headline.
Who were these people that the journalists spoke to?
The sources
the people,
who attended,
the sources.
Yes. And we explained it to the ombudsman who is handling the issue. Like I said to Chris Vick, really, If the ombudsman said we got it wrong, it's not in our interest to be defensive. It's not in our interest. Actually, we will lose credibility if we do that. I'm just saying that I do not understand the ratcheting up of all these emotions just based on the fact that people felt that we did not report their conference accurately. And our editor said, at the moment, she is satisfied. But if an external person says, we don't think so, we think really the headline was misleading or part of the story was inaccurate, we will own up. We did that before. And other newspapers did that before. It's not in anyone's interest. And for people to say, because now you are getting it wrong, or you are inaccurate, or you are misleading, or something was not truthful, therefore you have an agenda, I think it's just tosh.
But then, gentlemen, Chris, maybe you can answer this. How do we then instill and persuade a balanced media where credit is given just as much as criticism?
I think there's a broader problem, which is that the quality of journalism is not what it used to be. I mean, I listened to an interview on a radio station with Manaledi, the reporter who wrote this article, who says that she essentially became aware of the article on Facebook, copied a couple of the postings and then tried to talk to people. Now, that's not journalism. I don't know if that's what Mshwesh calls journalism, but the Mail and Guardian used to risk lives, invest money, bug hotel rooms, send people undercover. Now they press a screen grab button, copy something off Facebook, and they call that journalism. That, I think, is the broader problem. And the irony, Alicia, is we had a long discussion at that workshop about the importance of quality in journalism, that if the quality improves, the problems that you see now, journalist gets a document gets written about, that's a story. Those sorts of problems, I think, will increase the relationship, the coordination, the discussion between journalists and politicians.
And
but when you get something like this, that was my key message, right? That's partly why I was so angry, because that message resonated. There were people there who didn't want to see journalists beforehand. Afterwards, they were saying, let's go and buy some KFC, let's take these guys out, let's get them drunk, take Mshwesh to Doppio Zero and have a good time. They were so ready for it. Anyway. They see this article and show more love.
Chris, look, you have tweets over there. Let's have a look at what our viewers at home are saying on this debate. Let's see,
Mshwesh is going to say, I mobilized these people.
Temba Sipotokele says, sources. They sometimes can mislead, sometimes they do have an agenda. Manaledi Mataboge says, seriously watching an SA Media Monitor for the first time because honestly, I've never taken it seriously. Well, thank you so much. Maybe you've taken us seriously this time around. Gentlemen, very quickly, just your parting words. Mshwesh, give us your overall view about the spin now that the story has created. What are your views afterwards?
Look, the only thing that I agree with Chris on, other than pirates, is the fact that we need to make sure that the quality of our journalism is strengthened, is improved. I agree with him. It's not in our interest to really have poor journalism. And here, I agree to say with commercial pressure on us and those kind of things, we may sometimes drop the baton. And it's not in our interest to do that. We need to improve. That is why I'm saying that if any external person says, you got your story wrong, it's not in our interest to be defensive.
Very quickly, Chris, your closing words.
I'm a consumer. I've raised a consumer complaint with a producer of a newspaper. I've been joined with 5 times as many people as the Mail and Guardian spoke to. I would like them to be receptive to that. I would like them to be honest about the problems that they might have faced in getting their story and own up and rebuild the relationship that could exist.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Media Monitor. Well, that's veteran journalist Mr. Chris Vig with Mr. Mshwesh Monare, Mail and Guardian Deputy Editor, with us on the issue of the recent workshop on communications by the ruling party. We're going to take a very quick ad break, but what will it take to unite COSATU's leadership? You have to stay tuned until after the break to find out more. This is Media Monitor. Stay with us. Welcome back to Media Monitor. Zwelinze Mavavi's relationship with COSATU hangs in the balance. The Central Executive Committee is expected to announce its decision about his future. A forensic report by Sizwe Ntsaluba Gobodo, which investigated allegations of procurement irregularities against Vavi, was also discussed by the committee. It's believed the report will be used as a basis to suspend the Secretary General, who refused to attend the organization's three-day meeting. Meanwhile, Vavi has labelled the investigation simply a witch hunt. Gentlemen, seemingly the battle lines have been drawn here. COSATU standing firm against Vavi, whom in turn decided to not even pitch for the Central Executive Committee meeting. Let's start with you, Dominique.
I think, if you look at the COSATU story, I will call it the COSATU story, there are more plots than in any of our soapies that we watch during the week. The unfortunate part of it is that you've got an internal process, looking into how COSATU is being run. But it's overshadowed by the politics. It's unfortunate that the leadership there, in my view, they should have resigned as of yesterday, all of them. Because of the interest of the workers have taken a backseat, and everyone is coming in there to create their own fiefdom, and that fiefdom will take them to parliament. If it's not in parliament, they will become ministers. So what's the role of COSATU at the end of the day? Let alone put the internal processes aside. Look at the role of the organization itself. It's no longer doing what it was supposed to do. The shop floor issues in factories and all of that. COSATU is not even influencing any policy that is coming out of parliament. But ask them about politics within COSATU and the ANC. Then they are willing to come to SABC, willing to phone journalists. But ask them about policy, they know nothing. That's the sad part about it.
Mondli.
Now, before I answer, Mushweshwe said that the only thing that he and Chris agree with is Orlando Pirates. I just want to state for the record that I agree with both of them about Orlando Pirates. Yeah, anyway.
Mondli, look, Dominic raises an issue here that I also wanted to take up. The issue of NUMSA's expulsion, along with the fact that the 8 other affiliates are not in attendance. How is the issue of the new Lemusa organization being debated in absentia of all the affiliates? What's going on with the labor matters?
Well, look, I think what is the reality here is that COSATU is dead. I think we have to accept that, and COSATU has to accept that it is dead. Zwelinze Mavavi is going to leave COSATU, whether he's kicked out by the rest of the leadership or whether he leaves on his own. There is going to be a new federation centered around NUMSA, and which will compete with COSATU for space in the labor arena, and basically as well as in influencing the politics of the country. So that is something that's going to happen. I think what you're seeing now is basically just power play to ensure that who's got the upper hand and who's. But I think it is written. By the time COSATU goes to its conference in September, I think that would be basically the final chapter on this 30-year-old organization. It is the end.
So we should be are we not ready for those kinds of talks, looking at how far we've come and how much we've achieved, politics versus labor? Very quickly, Dominic.
Okay. No. I think, the ANC, they are right to step in to try and fix the problems. But they too should also realize that, as Mondli has said, that COSATU is dead and COSATU needs to find its footing again. As we know, they will have to go through the processes of who remains in control of COSATU.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to leave it there on our news for today. But what would you do if you found yourself on a date with an 89-year-old man? Naughty Ethan Cole decided to make his grandfather Joe go on a few blind dates set up through a dating app, Tinder. 89-year-old Joe was able to get 5 women to go on dates with him. Was it romantic? Your guess is just as good as mine. Gentlemen, very quickly, what do you think will be making news headlines next week? Do we still have time? Very quickly. Mondli, let's start with you.
Well, I think COSATU obviously is a big thing. And then the president is going to be answering questions in parliament.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Quick, Dominic?
Yeah, I think I will agree with Mondli. I think the focus will be on the president.
All right. Well, that's where we leave it. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And viewers, remember, always your contributions and suggestions are very highly valued. To engage with us, you can follow us on Twitter at SA Media Monitor. Share your views and comments on Facebook. Go to www.facebook.com facebook.com/Media Monitor and tick like on our page. You can also email us your views about the show. Our email address is mediamonitor@sabc.co.za. Once again, thank you so much for watching Media Monitor. Do join us again next week, and in case you missed our live show, remember you can still catch the repeat tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. Alternatively, go to our SABC YouTube link on www.youtube.com/SABC News. For myself, Alicia Jali, and the rest of the QTIV team, it's a blessed Sunday. Goodbye.